life through school and through work who I know are United fans. I know some Chelsea fans out there, some Arsenal fans, those poor unfortunate souls. But I know some United fans, and I've had the real pleasure of getting to know some of them over the years. I bring this up just because I want to talk for a moment about a woman who I used to be the supervisor of when I was a supervisor at my job. She was a very sweet woman, sort of in the prime of her life, and she was a United fan, and I was her direct supervisor, and we would have to talk pretty much daily about different metrics and things along those lines. But you get to know somebody, and you get to know about their family, and you get to hear about their cats and their daughters, and you talk about football, and you get excited when the Northwest Derby is on its way. It's usually ecstasy for one person and agony for another, although under recent performances, it's kind of been more draws than anything else. But I would look forward to those moments to talk with her about when Liverpool and Manchester United play. She knew that I was becoming quite the fan of Premier League football. As I was getting to know her was when I was really starting to get into watching Liverpool's every Liverpool game that I was able to be free for. So we would always chat just about the broader game as well. How we thought the people were doing, who we thought was going to take the title that season, how we thought certain players would fit into our respective teams, and who we were hoping that each individual manager would sign. Quite unfortunately, about a year or so before I stepped down to go back to school, this woman took ill. She I don't want to get into her personal details or anything like that. If you're listening to this and you knew this woman, you know exactly what was going on with her. But suffice it to say, she had to take some time off of work to deal with what was going on. And you just sort of stopped hearing from that person. Busy job, you keep on working, and that person is, she's trying to get herself right, hoping that she gets well soon. But, you start to hear less and less in terms of updates, and then less and less in terms of how she's doing. Just recently found out, just before Liverpool and Manchester United's game this weekend, I recently found out that unfortunately her battle against her illness was not a successful one, and she passed away this past December. She was the kindest woman that you could ever hope to meet. Just always had the sweetest things to say. Just out of nowhere one day gave me a book, Fever Pitch. It's about an Arsenal fan during a championship winning season. She said, I know you're a Liverpool fan, but this book is really great. You should read it. I always thought of her when United Liverpool play, and I always will. Just because she was everything that you would hope to get from a sports fan, to my mind. She was passionate, but also compassionate. And I hope she rests in peace.
Manchester United won 2-1 on Saturday, putting themselves 5 points ahead of Liverpool in the table, in second place. So I'm not going to sit here and complain about the game. I feel like that would cheapen the last 8 minutes or so. What I will say is, as you'd expect from Jose Mourinho's side, they played very well defensively. Liverpool's defense had their first bad game in quite a while, probably since Virgil van Dijk came into the side. Then the United was able to keep our front line very occupied with their defense, and then also we didn't have the same fire in the midfield as we have in the past. I think that we were really missing Jordan Henderson in the middle of the park there. So, season's not over by any stretch of the imagination. United is up 5 points on Liverpool on the table. Honestly, the goal is just to make top four. Going beyond that is fantastic. Really, I would like to make top three, which is, we're pretty safe in that at this point in time. Of course, things can still change, but going up above United in the standings would be nice. But honestly, the big thing for me would be to see us make Champions League qualification for 2 years in a row for the first time in forever. That's a really big deal. Helps us attract top level players and help build on what's already a really good team. Honestly, I think that the mentality of the team going forward is going to be the real test for the next little while. In the past, this sort of result 2-1 away at United might derail the rest of our season. I think that's maybe the big change that Jurgen Klopp has brought to the side, is that there's a real belief that we can push on. So hopefully we do just that, and hopefully you enjoyed that game. Anyhow, that's going to be that for Liverpool. We're going to take a little music break and come back with the last little hunk of the show. It's, that section where I sort of throw everything against the wall and see what sticks. We very well may be going long today. There's still a lot to talk about, and we're rapidly approaching an hour. So I'm going to try and condense my last few thoughts here in that sort of that segment I sometimes do at the end of the show, where I just sort of go rapid fire with a few news stories that I want to talk about, but I don't have enough time to necessarily to go into all of them. So, first of all, Farmer Bro Martin Shkreli sentenced with tears in his eyes this week, which I think I can speak for the entire world. At least, everybody listening to the sound of my voice right now. When we say, Martin, your tears sustain me. I'm not somebody who necessarily believes in karma, in a real cosmic sense. I think there is a certain amount of what goes around comes around. I think that the arc of history does bend towards justice, and some justice was done. So Shkreli wasn't found guilty for some of the shitty things that he did. I think that artificially increasing the price of potentially life-saving medicines is, if there is a hell, there's a special room for people who do that sort of shit. But instead, he was found guilty for basically fraud surrounding misleading investors in a couple of hedge funds that he had founded and operated. He had manipulated some stock shares of a company that he founded. So basically, just a bunch of financial shit. So sentenced to 7 years in prison. As well as forfeiting almost $7.4 million, as well as giving up ownership of the one-of-a-kind Wu-Tang Clan album that he had purchased, which hopefully, the government, I guess, does the right thing here and releases that wide, because nothing would make me happier than to see not only Martin Shkreli rot in prison for 7 years, but also to see that little piece of I've got this exclusive thing, I'm so cool, being just given out to the world. at, normal market value. So, suck a dick there, Martin Shkreli. Glad to see you go where you belong. So, moving on. So if the name Doug Ford doesn't necessarily ring a bell to you, if you don't live here in the Great White North, you probably remember the name Rob Ford, Toronto, Ontario's crack-smoking mayor who passed away a couple years ago. Well, his brother is maybe the leader of the Ontario Progressive Conservative Party now. So the incredibly short race came to an end this weekend. As I'm recording this, it's questioned if he actually has won. He was, technically speaking, confirmed to be the leader by the party itself. But Christine Elliott, I think the candidate who has the least name recognition outside of Ontario, I believe that she's the one who's very socially conservative, very against sex education for children. I think that was sort of what the big thing that she sort of ran on. She basically was the candidate who said, unite behind me and we'll unite the party. But she refuses to concede the race to Doug Ford. She's citing some irregularities in the vote tabulation process. Of course, like leadership races here in Canada, they're different for every party. Basically, I think that this was a preferential ballot. Honestly, like Doug Ford, I figured would win. He was the candidate who maybe had the most name recognition as a politician. Like I should say that former Prime Minister Brian Mulroney's daughter, Carolyn Mulroney, was also in the race there. I believe that she finished third. I want to say, I'm not 100% sure on that. I haven't paid that close attention to the exit polls. So interesting. Like Doug Ford as PC leader is an interesting thing because like the election's just in a couple of months. And Kathleen Wynne's government, pretty notoriously unpopular. The Liberal Party in Ontario has been unpopular since before Kathleen Wynne was the leader, before Kathleen Wynne was the premier. The Ontario Liberal Party, they've been in power for forever and a day. So it's just like, honestly, it very well could swing to the PCs, but like it's weird. Doug Ford is kind of like Schrodinger's political operative, right? Like he's either gonna well, I guess he's not actually Schrodinger's cat in this situation. He's the vial of poison. He's either going to completely destroy the chances of that cat being able to form government, or he's going to help it. That analogy really fell apart. I guess the cat is the party. The box is inter-party politics, and all of us are scared. I think that's the best way to put it. So interesting to see how this one shakes out. Honestly, the worst part of it is, though, Doug Ford is around again. So I don't know if you can make some money by hearing the word taxpayer repeated over and over again by a major Ontario politician, then congratulations, because I think that's Doug Ford's favorite word. Anywho, finally, we're going to end on this. And I don't know who the powers that be can make this change, but hopefully we can get this message to them. Daylight savings time is bullshit, and it needs to stop. Lots of other jurisdictions around the world. I think Florida, I want to say Saskatchewan. I'm sure that there's some countries in Europe because they seem to, have their heads on the right way. Scandinavia, maybe. This whole, pretending that fucking 8 o'clock is actually 9 o'clock. This bullshit needs to stop. Okay? It absolutely needs to stop. All that daylight savings time does in the modern economy is make me cranky, make me tired, and makes me late for work. We need to stop this madness and just stop pretending that renaming 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock is making our daylight hours any longer. It's the same